And we've got today with us the writer, screenwriter, and the writer of the book, Samantha Lee Howe, with me. Hi, Samantha.
Oh, hello, Stephen. How are you doing?
Oh, great. You're looking fantastic. Look, so I've got to ask you, can you tell us what A Stranger in Our Bed is about?
Well, The Stranger in Our Bed is about a woman who is in a marriage that she doesn't understand why, but she's very unhappy in. And she falls in love with another person outside of that marriage, decides to leave her husband for him. But when she goes to meet him, he disappears. And that's when the mystery really starts as to what has happened to him and how did this happen. And that's interweaved with this very complicated relationship she has with her husband, which is sort of somewhat abusive and also a little bit codependent, which, a lot of these relationships do end up being about. So it's one of those stories that it's a domestic noir, and it's very much about domestic violence and the multi levels in which that can take place.
Now, this is your first screenplay, isn't it?
It is. I did a Doctor Who spin-off, which was a mini drama with real-time pictures, and that's called White Witch of Devil's End, quite a few years ago. But that was sort of more of a fan-made film. But this is my first proper screenplay in terms of a whole drama that I've written complete, that's based on my own novel as well. So yeah, it was very exciting.
Now, I know Hitchcock, and you kind of genre you're working in, always appears in all his films. Now, I understand you went on the set of the film.
I did. And I mean, it was one of those things that I really wanted to do that if I ever got a film made, that I really wanted to be one of the background artists. And I got my wish, thanks to Terri Dwyer, the producer, and the lovely director, Giles Alderson. And Giles wanted to make more of the part that I went on with my husband as well, David.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make more of our part. But I just thought, in the end, I was happy with just where we were. And I thought, well, what's the point of elongating it? It's not adding anything to the story. So we were actually sat behind the gorgeous Samantha Bond in a cafe while she's giving a very, very important talk to the lead character, Charlotte, played by Emily Berrington. And so you can't miss me, really.
And no,
I'm a bit conspicuous with this hair anyway.
do you think of maybe in future films you're writing of appearing a little bit more?
Oh gosh, yes. It's just got to be, if it's good enough for Hitchcock, I mean, who am I to say
Now,
no?
what was it like? I mean, was it? I mean, I know it was during partly during lockdown. What was it like going on the actual set and meeting the cast?
Oh, it was just amazing. I mean, one of the things we drove to Northampton. The filming was taking place. The first part of the film was taking place for the first 2 weeks in this gorgeous manor house called Hall in Northampton.
Yeah.
Now, my husband and I drove to this. We were in the middle of lockdown. We were allowed to travel because we were technically working. So we were allowed to go and stay in a hotel. And it was in the November lockdown in 2020.
Yeah.
And obviously, we'd isolated for a couple of weeks. We'd been tested. Everyone was having lateral flows and PCR tests. And it was its own little cocoon, actually. And one of the weirdest things for me was arriving on set and going round the back of the house because the doors, everything, there was nobody at the front. I drove in, parked the car, and went, "Where is everyone?" So my husband and David and I walked round the back, and there was this lady in the mask in this little backyard, as it were,
Yeah.
on the back door. And she looked up and she went, "Can I help you?" And I went, "Oh yes, I'm looking for Terri." And I realised I was talking to Samantha Bond. And so I went, "Oh, you're Samantha Bond." And I pulled my mask down and said, "I'm the other Samantha." And she pulled hers down, and we both had a chuckle.
Yeah.
And she said something to me, the golden words that I'm never ever going to forget.
Yeah.
And that was, "Thank you so much for writing me such a brilliant part." And you imagine what I felt like, one absolute all-time icon, Samantha Bond, saying that to you. And I almost fell down on the floor. I was like, "We're not worthy." She was
No,
amazing.
it is. I mean, I'm not saying women could write women's parts better, but I do have to say that the character Samantha Bonnet puts chills through you. She's amazing, and I mean, whenever she's on the screen, she captures it, doesn't she?
Oh, she just, it's funny. I couldn't imagine anyone else being Isadora now. She just is amazing. And she was just perfectly cast. And when she was first mentioned to me as a possibility, I was like, oh my, that would be just like amazing. Because the minute, I just saw her there. The minute her name was brought up, I was like, yes. So it was a big yes to me. She was just perfect as Adora.
I mean, it would be very easy for to play the part like Alexis Colby, but in fact, she brings such light and shade to the part. It's even more frightening whenever she's on screen.
Well, the thing is, you don't really know what she's about. You don't know what her game is. You see her as this posh lady who is very controlling. She's got her son who she adores and it can't do any wrong. And then you've got this wayward daughter-in-law that she has to get in check, because she's the one that's, been betrayed her son. And yet there are so many other levels to it that you almost know that Isadora's character is very sympathetic towards Emily's character, Charlotte, which you find out later on without spoilers when she does something really
it's such a good
spectacular.
film. We don't want to give away anything, but you'll be surprised. I mean, Samantha Bond is her finest. Now, a lot of people are going to be asking this. It's based on a true story. Who's it based on? Is it based on you?
No, it's not. Well, there are elements. I mean, it's no secret that I've come out recently and said that I was, in a domestic violence situation with my ex-husband. But which I'll go into where it does come into the story a little bit. The original story was told to me by a friend, and it was of a friend. It happened to her friend.
Yeah.
And what had happened was that this woman was a very wealthy, happily married lady who met some man in a big superstore. And this was actually in America, not in the UK. I created it to happen in the UK because to me, that was my sort of playing ground, if you like. That was what I knew, I was familiar with.
Yeah.
And this guy and her begin this relationship. They have a year-long affair. The man lied to her, but she didn't know that about who he was. And then he started to beg her to leave her husband. Now, after a year, this woman's thinking, yes, I'm absolutely head over heels in love with this guy. He lied to her about what he did. And we're talking now about maybe 30, 35 years ago, where there wasn't the internet the way we have it now.
Yeah.
You did not have social media the way you have it. We're looking at the 80s, really. It's probably the late 80s, early 90s. And home computers were just about happening. Whereas now, the first thing you would do if you met somebody, you would, oh, well, I checked them out online. I would see, where they pop up.
Yeah.
I would definitely search them out.
Yeah.
And so this guy was able to create this whole identity. And then when she turned up at the meeting point, which is all of which happens within my story, he doesn't show. And when my friend told me this story, well, I just got goosebumps. And I went, one, what an evil person, because when she tried to get hold of him, she rang his phone number. It went to, it was actually a dead line. And she's spoken to him on this phone number loads and loads of times. So the whole thing was planned. She rang the business place he said he worked at, and they'd never heard of him. And this whole thing was some kind of sting operation to ruin this woman's life. Now, immediately I said, when my friend told her, such a body's behind this. And my friend said, oh, no, he wasn't. And I said, but he is now.
Yeah.
Or there is somebody behind this. And then that set my mind thinking as to how I would rewrite the story, how I would create the story. And that's why The Stranger in Our Bed was born, really.
I mean, it's really interesting because I read that the pandemic, there was filmed during the pandemic, and also you wrote the screenplay during it. How long did it take you to write the screenplay?
It was Terri Dwyer approached me around about July. There was an awful lot of, took a long time to get contracts sorted out, longer than she wanted. But as soon as the contracts were signed, I literally wrote the screenplay within 2 weeks. And
Wow.
that was draft 4 by that point. Before I let anyone else see it, I'd done 4 drafts of it. I'm very, very fast. It went to draft 9 in the end, which any screenwriter will tell you that's pretty good, because they can go to 30, 40 drafts once you start to get the input from everybody else. So obviously I had input from Terri, I had input from Giles. We had lots and lots of meetings, did lots of discussions. I rewrote it. And we just thought, how can you make this into what we really wanted to do is make it feel like the book, but we also knew we had to change it because of the COVID restrictions we had, because of the timeline in the book wouldn't work as so well in a thriller.
Doesn't ruin
And
the
of course, you're condensing a 400 pages into a 90-minute film.
yeah.
So I had to sacrifice things.
And it doesn't ruin the film at all. You would never guess it was filmed during a pandemic. It's just, you whizzes you along the film. So I think people just need to know this. You've written quite a few books. You left school with no qualifications.
Yes.
You're a hairdresser and a
I was.
I
was for my sins.
And you're voted the most unlikely to succeed. How does it feel now to be on top?
It feels absolutely amazing. I'm really still riding on the crest of this wave, actually. This week with the film just coming out in the UK as well, it's just been phenomenal, the impact that it seems to be having. The amount of private messages I'm receiving, messages on my social media saying how wonderful the film is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all validation. To me, the most important people are those who are buying it and watching it, and they're all loving it. That's brilliant.
I think what's really interesting with it's, going to be sidekick here a little bit here, how big in the US you are. I mean, you're on the USA Today's bestseller race with your book. The film has gone on a storm in the US, hasn't it?
That's absolutely mind blowing.
The film's released this week in Britain, isn't it right?
Yes, that's right. On the 5th of September.
Where can you see it?
You can see it on Google, Xbox, iTunes, Apple TV, Rakuten. You can see it on Sky Box Office, and you can see it on Amazon Prime. And I'm sure there's other places as well, but that's the ones I can remember off the top of my head.
That's absolutely. Sam, just quickly, what do you have coming up next? Have you started a new screenplay? Have you started?
I have. I've been working on a pilot for my House of Killers trilogy, to make it into. I foresee it as a 3-series crime spy espionage thriller for TV. With any luck.
Well, Sam, I'm telling everyone to watch Stranger in Our Bed. It is creepy. Brilliantly written. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Bye. Thanks so much. Bye.